All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, depending where you all are coming in from. We are so excited to have you here for a special summer PC Power Hour. As you come on the call, please mute yourself. We'll have a lot of our partner college staff joining. This is a special series that we're kicking off where we're not just inviting our partner college staff that we work directly with for TheDream.Us, but we have invited your fellow colleagues, faculty, and staff who may be interested in learning about career options available to undocumented professionals. So this is a special session. We've allocated an hour and 15 minutes. We do have a packed agenda, so we are going to jump right into it. And the session is recorded, so you will have access to all of the resources and the slides once the session is complete. In the meantime, as always, we encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat. We always love to know who's in the room as we go through this special session. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here real quick and get into our summer PC Power Hour. Okay, so as I mentioned before, this is a special session where we are doing essentially a 101 introduction training for supporting undocumented success career pathways, regardless of work authorization. If you're familiar with our program, for those of you who are not so familiar with our program, we are the nation's largest college and career success program for undocumented students. And as we continue to serve an increasing group of students without work authorization, meaning without DACA or TPS, our organization is heading into a new chapter of our work as we serve this ever-changing population. So here's what we're going to go over today. The first thing we want to do is lay the context of what we're talking about and who we're talking about. So we'll share an overview of some data that we've been collecting from our partner colleges as well as our scholars to better understand what's available at our campuses in terms of career supports for undocumented students. We'll also share some key takeaways from our scholar survey, which we just closed last week with over 3,000 of our current scholarship recipients reflecting on their past academic year. And we have a very special guest here today, one of our current scholars, Brittany Ortiz, who will also be talking about her own experiences as an undocumented college student and budding entrepreneur. So once we get over the state of play, so you get a lay of the land, we will move on to our colleague, Nicole Wesley, who will do a 101 introduction in terms of what are the pathways that are available to undocumented students, regardless of work authorization. What does career development look like? What are the actual pathways in which they can take to develop their career? And then our colleague, Chris Aviles, we'll talk about implementation. So what is it that you can actually do? What are some promising practices that you can start to think about in terms of implementation on campus to better support your students and your students' needs? And we will highlight a directory, a Communities of Practice directory by President's Alliance, which is a very, very useful tool for you all to connect beyond the TheDream.Us community and actually connect nationwide with others who are doing this work. And as always, we'll take questions throughout the session. And as we go through this. Couple heads up as well before we jump into the meat and the content of the session. This we are considering a pilot session. So as we talk through the data here from the partner colleges, you will hear that this is a big need, not just for our scholars, but for our partner colleges as well. And we are piloting this session to essentially broaden our reach in terms of having this information accessible, not just to those we work with here at TheDream.Us, but an effort to institutionalize career supports for undocumented students so that any student, regardless of immigration status, has access to this information. And these practices become institutionalized in a way that live beyond our scholarship program and can better serve students, regardless of whether or not they have the TheDream.Us scholarship. Okay, so jumping into the state of play last fall, if you are with us, actually, before I jump into this, we will do a quick poll just to get a lay of the land of who's here. We'd love to know, for those of you in the room, so to speak, how many of you are part of the TheDream.Us partner college team versus any other external folks who might be here. You may be faculty, you may be staff that are not necessarily affiliated with the TheDream.Us, but are joining because you received the invite from a fellow colleague. All right, so we see the votes coming in. Okay, we'll give it just a couple more seconds here. Okay, this is great. Very, very helpful. Thank you all for responding to that. That's very helpful to know that about 70% of you all are here from the TheDream.Us community and 30% are not. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll share those results. Okay. All right, so for those of you who are affiliated with us, you will see that, let's see, how do I get rid of this? You will see that we administered a survey, a partner college survey this year. We had reached out to all of our partner college staff to better understand what supports are available for undocumented students on campus. The survey ranged from academic supports to career supports and anything and all in between. Here today, we're going to focus on what career supports are available for undocumented students. We had 181 of you all respond to this survey, representing 74 partner colleges overall. A subset of 53 respondents answered the following questions that we asked, and this represents respondents from 38 colleges, which is about half of our partner college community. And the key takeaway here is that all of our partner colleges need very, very fundamental supports and basic trainings to institutionalize career services for undocumented students. And this is where we are beginning here today. We're all on the journey together. And in terms of the number one need being, what are in fact the career pathways that are viable and open to our undocumented students, regardless of work authorization, and how can I best support them and advise them in this process? That being said, we also fully understand that all of you juggle many, many different responsibilities. And in fact, your affiliation with us at TheDream.Us includes taking this work on, in most cases, in addition to a full-time job. And so in full transparency, our colleges also shared that while this is of great interest to them, capacity is a huge concern. And so 76% said that their career services center, for example, does not have or currently has very limited capacity to develop undocu-centric supports for undocumented students. All right, so speaking to that first bullet right there, you will see here at the top, the topmost bar, 94%, meaning almost all of the respondents here from our partner colleges said that the top need for career services is understanding career opportunities for those without work authorization. This is one of the key reasons why we are having this session here today as an introduction. And we hope to get your feedback in the chat post session so that we can continue to understand what sessions that we might follow up with to better support your work in supporting undocumented students. And so in terms of advising our scholars, that was the second top need of supporting undocumented students in their career success. So you'll see here 74%, 3 out of 4 said that more information on how to career coach, how to provide those specific supports for undocumented students, regardless of work authorization, is a high need. And to never forget about those who do have DACA, who do have TPS. While the majority of undocumented students graduating from high schools today do not have DACA, do not have work authorization, we still have a good number of our current scholars and alumni who do have DACA, who do have TPS, who are consistently being asked about their immigration status through job interviews, through internship interviews. And so understanding the employment rights for even those with DACA or TPS is still a high concern as well. And then very quickly, we see that a number of colleges do provide entrepreneurship resources. We know entrepreneurship, starting your own business, is one of the key tracks and viable career tracks for our scholars without work authorization. But you'll see here, regardless of the different types of entrepreneurship resources that are available, none are in fact tailored for undocumented students. And so while small business ownership and entrepreneurship can happen regardless of immigration status and without social security numbers, we have to acknowledge that there are particular barriers and challenges that our students face as undocumented immigrants. And so a key need here is understanding how we can tailor or make sure that these resources are inclusive of our undocumented students without work authorization in particular. So we're going to transition here into what we heard from our scholars directly. Every year we survey thousands and thousands of our current scholars who are enrolled in college. We just did our most recent scholar survey where over 3,000 of our scholars responded, gave us their feedback. And this is a quick reflection of key takeaways from what our scholars told us about their past academic year. So every year we ask them what are the top 3 resources they need in terms of their career. And the number one this year, which was a departure from previous years, was understanding my career options without work authorization. And in many ways, this is a reflection of what we just saw in the previous slides about what our partner colleges are saying they need. And we anticipate that obviously this is a conversation between the student and the advisor. And this is in fact a reflection of what scholars are telling their advisors and what advisors are then in turn telling us they need to better support their students. And a continuation from the data last year is that students are always looking for work and career opportunities that put cash in their hands. So we'll share a little more data here, but getting that career experience, that means making an income as well as gaining professional experience, is still at the top of our scholars' minds, especially because regardless of the scholarship, there are continued financial need for books, for resources, and for supporting family. And this conversation we'll have about supporting our scholars through internship and fellowship experiences while in college for career development. Okay, so digging just quickly a little deeper into these data points, we ask our students in terms of whether or not they see themselves as the business. One of the things we constantly hear and we're moving towards is understanding what the entrepreneurial mindset looks like. So for our students, especially without work authorization, do they see themselves as small business owners, as entrepreneurs? So we ask this question, and here the data is subset for only those without work authorization. This reflects data for our scholars without DACA, without TPS, fully undocumented, and we ask them, do you know how to navigate your career without work authorization? And if you pay attention here to the red portion of the pie as well as the yellow, you'll see that the overwhelming majority say either no or that they're unsure. And so this speaks to not just understanding what career options are available for undocumented students without work authorization, but the culture shift that we need to think about in terms of getting our scholars to understand that this is a viable career track for them and getting them in the mindset to prepare them for what is ahead. And then speaking to the second need here, you'll see this is the work status for all of our scholars who were enrolled in college this past academic year, broken out by year in college in terms of whether or not they're working or looking for work. So this excludes any scholar that says that they're not working and not looking for work. So that red bar you see there are students who are actively looking for job opportunities and for work opportunities. And you'll see here this past year for our freshmen, 1 and 2 were working and the other half were looking for work opportunities. And it's not a surprise to see that for our freshman and sophomore classes where there are a higher proportion of students without work authorization, that they are more likely to be the ones looking for work and work opportunity, especially ones that align with their career interests. Okay, and here is the last data slide that we'll share in terms of internships. We know that access to internships and fellowships is a key question. We know it's a key building block for career development, regardless of whether or not they are going into the formal labor market. Internships and fellowships are a key place of learning. It's a place to learn, as we all know, how to network, how to develop soft skills, how to understand how organizations or businesses might work. And so we consider it to be a key pillar, a key building block of career development while students are in college. And this tracks over the years what percent of our scholars are completing internships. And you'll see that consistently the majority of our scholars are not completing internships in the academic year. And this is fairly consistent regardless of whether or not they're a freshman or a junior or senior. And for those who do complete them, those are the ones in the blue and the yellow. You'll see about half are completing paid internships and half are completing unpaid internships. And of course, here at TheDream.Us, we consistently push for our scholars to be able to be included in paid opportunities. All right, but enough from me. We think it's always most important to hear directly from our scholars and those from the impacted community. So we've invited one of our amazing scholars, Brittany Ortiz. She is one of our fabulous scholars in the state of Florida who just recently graduated graduated from Valencia College with her associate's degree and a certificate as a business specialist. And she's actually now currently enrolled at the University of Central Florida, where she will pursue her Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Marketing. We've invited her here today to really talk about, from her perspective, from her experience, what it looks like in terms of career development and what her dreams are as an undocumented professional.
Hi, yes, I'm Brittany. I came at the age of 3. I've studied my whole life here in Orlando, Florida, from elementary till now college. And a little bit about me is I thought I had the same opportunities as all my friends, but I noticed a struggle in junior year. It was mostly when people started filling out for FOSFA or government aid that they were asking for social security number. And it was hard for me to apply. And I had to talk to few teachers, and I was like, no, I'm not able to fill it out or even apply for it. And they were like, oh, like why? And they were asking me, and I told them, and they were like, oh, there's not another option, like they would just put me to a side. Like they will go to English classes and they will make everyone fill out their FOSFA, and they're like, oh, if you don't have it socially, like, you can't do it, just sit there, and wait for the class to be done with. And that's when I started looking for other opportunities. And I was able to find the TheDream.Us, which is a national scholarship. And it brought me back hope that it was possible to go to college. And I started doing my own research, and I was able to apply and get the scholarship. And now I'm pursuing my bachelor's. In 2 more years, I'll be able to graduate from UCF. I aspire to have my own business, my marketing firm here in Orlando. For right now, I would like to start doing internships, especially now I started a class, which is career development. And it's like telling you how to do interviews and apply for internships, but they don't focus on if you don't have a social or what to do if you're not even a citizen. And I don't even have DACA or TPS, so it's even harder to ask those questions. And I was actually planning on meeting with one of my guidance next week to see how she could help me apply and for other resources since they don't cover it in class. Some other challenges was that I was going to do enrollment, and I was getting my veterinarian assistant certification, and they didn't even were able to help me finish because I was graduating that summer semester. So the school was asking me for my social, and they were like, no, if you don't have a social, you can't finish. But the teacher was like, if you take the test and you pass it, like we'll give you your veterinarian assistant license, which I did, and I got it, but I wasn't even able to renew it because I needed to do internship hours to be able to renew that license. So I lost it. And it was till recently that I found out I could actually apply for internships. Because of that, I was like, no, I can't even do like internships or get like hands-on experience. But then while we were going to Tallahassee, the other friends were like, oh no, like I did internships and this and that. And I was like, we're able to do internships. And she was like, yeah. And she doesn't have DACA either. So she was like telling me what she did and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, like, it's possible to do that. And so now I'm just trying to see what I can do for my own before going to ask for help.
And are there any other things, Brittany, I'll just follow up with one question that you think might be helpful for you and your peers? And besides internships, is there anything else that you think might be helpful that campuses might be thinking about in terms of supporting you and your peers?
So actually they bring people to speak, like finance majors, marketing people, and they come and speak about their journey. I think it would be great if they were able to bring people like us, like that they don't have DACA and they were able to open their own businesses, to share a little bit about their story and what they were able to do and how they accomplish their company and how they will build it.
Got it. Anything else you want to add?
Not for right now.
You got it. Well, Brittany will be here if you'd like to ask Brittany any specific questions about her experience We think it's great that that Brittany was able, one, to share her experience. We also want to acknowledge how different political climates can be and state contexts can be. So, the purpose of this session is not necessarily to address the very specific context of different political climates in different states, but we did ask Brittany here from the state of Florida, especially because of everything that's happening here and the particular challenges that face our students, especially in states like Texas and Florida, where the conversation may not be as open, but we want to encourage our scholars to stay, to persist, and to succeed. And so thank you, Brittany, for sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
Okay, so before I hand it off to Nicole, one of the things we wanted to do to finalize the setting of the stage here is to talk about the changing landscape of work and how we talk about work. So you all are more familiar than we are in many ways about this shift for the younger generation, for millennials, for Gen Z, to have an increased interest overall, regardless of being undocumented or not, in being their own business owners, having more control over their time. There's an increase in freelancing and small business ownership as a viable career track. And so we want to embed this conversation in terms of not just about it being undocumented, but really being about the way labor is moving nationwide. But at the same time, we think it's very, very important to acknowledge the fact that while this is part of a larger conversation in terms of where labor is going, undocumented students are choosing not necessarily this track out of choice, but because this is what their immigration status has guided them to. And so there's a difference between talking about wanting to have more control and over your time, over your business as a citizen and a permanent resident out of choice, versus understanding the very real realities of having to choose certain career options that are dictated by your immigration status. And the other thing we wanted to mention and set up the stage for Nicole's part of this session is this concept and idea of deinstitutionalizing work. A lot of the times, as Brittany mentioned, as she gets through high school and comes to college and starts thinking about the jobs she wants to take on, it is a very jarring realization oftentimes for students to realize, because of their immigration status, that they can't just simply apply to a job like their citizen peers or their permanent resident peers. And so this is oftentimes because we think about work as in terms of working for an employer, working for a corporation, working for an organization. And what we would like to do is contribute to the conversation in terms of reframing how we talk about work, in terms of it being about career development that can be taken on by the individual or groups of individuals who are small business owners. And it's not necessarily about working for a Google or working for a corporation, but it's really about you as the business and you developing your own business. So with that mindset in framework in mind, I will pass over the session to Nicole.
Thanks, Hayne, for setting the stage and providing that context. And also thank you, Brittany, for sharing your story with us today. Now let's dive in to discussing career pathways for undocumented students, regardless of work authorization. Anyone, regardless of immigration status, can earn a living through entrepreneurial careers and by working for themselves. Entrepreneurial career pathways do not require work authorization, and they include independent contracting and freelancing, starting their own business, and joining or starting a worker cooperative. Next slide, thank you. For all entrepreneurial career pathways, an I-10 is a must for undocumented individuals without a social security number. For those of you that are unfamiliar with what an I-10 is an individual taxpayer identification number. It was created and issued by the IRS for individuals without a social security number to file and pay taxes. There are many benefits to undocumented individuals without a social security number to have an I-10 beyond just filing and paying taxes. Those include opening a bank account, applying and obtaining a mortgage, and being able to participate in inclusive internship opportunities and fellowship opportunities that are inclusive to I-10 holders. All I-10 numbers have 9 digits and they start with the number 9. When you are working with undocumented students that self-disclose that they are fully undocumented without work authorization, they may not know whether or not they have an ITIN number or not. So before advising them to apply for an ITIN, first tell your students that you may have an ITIN and you may not know it. I'd advise you to go talk to your parents, and if they've filed income taxes and if they've claimed them as a dependent, they may already have an ITIN number. So we have a great one-pager that we will talk quickly about here shortly, but that's something to think about. We recently did an ITIN campaign to all of our scholars without work authorization, and some of our scholars initially thought they didn't have an ITIN and then realized that they did after talking to their parents. If you've confirmed with your students that they in fact do not have an ITIN, the ITIN process and application can take a while, a bit of time. The 3 things that are needed is Form W-7, which is the IRS application for applying for an ITIN, Form 1040, which is the annual tax return form, and then some identification documents. These forms need to be mailed into the IRS, including important identification documents like a birth certificate or a passport. And because it's being mailed in, it can take over several weeks, several months before you receive a letter back from the IRS with your ITIN number. So I just mentioned that because if you are assisting students with applying for an ITIN, do know that it can take up to several months for them to receive one. As I mentioned, individuals are mailing these application materials or these forms in, as well as important IDs. If they want to not mail in those important identification documents like a passport or a birth certificate, they can work with a CAA, who's a certified acceptance agent. They're experts in helping individuals with filling out the Form W-7, and they can visually authenticate these identification documents so you do not have to mail them into the IRS. Next slide, please. You can also learn more about ITINs. We recently created 3 wonderful quick handouts: a frequently asked questions guide, how to determine if a student already has an ITIN, and then a 4 or 5 pager on the ITIN application guide. So feel free to visit our website at TheDream.Us/ITIN. We also do have several recorded webinars specifically on ITINs. We've worked closely with a CAA, excuse me, and ITIN expert, Professor Francine Littman, and you can find several of those recordings on our YouTube playlist. Now that we've talked about ITINs and ITINs being a must for undocumented individuals without a social security number, I'll briefly discuss the 3 entrepreneurial pathways and share some relevant resources for each. So first of all, independent contractors and freelancers, they're self-employed individuals that are contracted to provide services for others as a non-employee. If you look at this image, you'll see the difference between an employee versus an independent contractor. Because our students do not have work authorization, they do not have a social security number, they cannot apply for employee type positions or W-2 positions. However, with that said, they can be self-employed as independent contractors and freelancers, where they would sign into a contract with the individual or the organization that they're providing a service to clearly define what the type of project will be, for how long, the duties that they will fulfill, and their pay. As independent contractors, they're able to maintain independence and control over their work. And as I mentioned earlier, with ITINs being a must, they would need an ITIN to provide these services, fill out tax forms, and pay taxes. One other thing too I wanted to mention is, well, and we can go on to the next slide, that's okay. So one other thing I was going to mention is there are several freelancing platforms out there, including Upwork and Fiverr, and you see that at the bottom on the first column. Using Upwork and Fiverr can be a great way for your students to, first of all, explore what are some contracting or freelance opportunities that I can engage in, what type of services can I provide, and also create an account to sell their services on these platforms. So long as they have an ITIN number or social security number, they're able to do so. So these are some helpful resources that are specifically in regards to independent contracting and freelancing that are for undocumented students or non-citizens. As you can see, there's some great resources for Immigrants Rising. I'll quickly point out that they have an independent contractor brainstorming worksheet, which I think is of great value. Again, it's a way that you can work with your students for them to explore the different types of independent contract work, exploring Upwork and seeing current contractors and freelancers, what services they're providing, how much they're charging, and things like that. The other thing I'll quickly mention is there's another great organization out of New York State, their Youth Leadership Council. They have a brand new independent contractors quick sheet. It's a 2 or 3 page guide that has answers frequently asked questions about independent contracting and how to get started as an independent contractor as a non-citizen. Next slide. Another entrepreneurial career pathway that is inclusive to anyone, regardless of status, is starting and owning their own business. There's over 800,000 undocumented entrepreneurs currently in this country that are generating income and making a living for themselves and their families. We currently have scholars and alumni who are business owners and are starting their own business, as we have a clothing company, bookkeeping and accounting. We have an alumni who's creating signs for storefronts. So those are just some examples. We have done research through a partner, Immigrant Finance, who has confirmed that anyone, so long as they have an ITIN or social security number, can start their own business as a limited liability corporation or an LLC. I mentioned the importance of getting an ITIN. As a business owner, it is also important to get an EIN. An EIN is not as cumbersome. It's free. You can do it online through the IRS, but there are multiple benefits through having an EIN, an employer identification number. Some of those include gaining access to capital, business loans, and so forth, as well as hiring employees and protecting the business owner from identity theft. Next slide. In regards to helpful resources for starting a business, the one I will point out, and don't worry, I know there's a lot of slides on here, but you'll be getting these slides as a follow-up. Immigrants Rising has a wonderful self-paced entrepreneurial curriculum for undocumented individuals. It's called Spark Curriculum. And it has about 5 or 6 modules about entrepreneurship and starting your own business. So that's something that you can definitely take a look at. Also, I encourage you to think about currently what's available on your campus or in your local community. For example, do you have an SBDC, a Small Business Development Center? Do you have an entrepreneurship center at your campus or a startup center at your campus? How can you partner with those departments on campus to provide inclusive, and explicit programming to your undocumented students at your campus as it relates to entrepreneurship. And the third entrepreneurial career pathway is joining or starting a worker cooperative. A worker cooperative is a business that's typically structured as an LLC. It has shared ownership amongst its members, as worker owners invest in and own the business together. Members are owners and not employees as part of the worker cooperative. Worker cooperatives also operate according to a set of 7 principles, and one of those principles include that decision-making is democratic. So each member has an equal voting right when it comes to making important decisions about the worker cooperative. One example of a worker cooperative is Radiant Consulting, where they offer services to their community in bookkeeping, graphic design, and so forth. And some helpful resources as it relates to worker cooperatives. DAWI, or Democracy at Work Institute, they're a leader in supporting worker cooperatives throughout the country. I will also briefly highlight the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. They also have resources and support for worker co-ops, and they also have a worker co-op directory by state. Currently, there's almost 500 worker co-ops across the country, so you can take a look at that directory and look at some local cooperatives within your state. So with all that, I know there's been a lot of information with myself, with Brittany, and with Hayne talking. We will pause and see if there are any questions.
So it looks like there is one question so far from Sulika. Is there data available around the percentage of students registered with TheDream.Us that actually start a LLC or use their ITIN for employment? There is. So as I mentioned, we have just concluded this survey as of last week. And so we are just getting through some of that data, but we can certainly share that with you on the survey, which is why we encourage all of our scholars to fill it out. Every year, we ask whether or not they are working. And if they are, we do ask if they are self-employed. And if they are self-employed, what their business structure is. And while we can't identify who the students are, because obviously data privacy concerns, as you all know, this year we started sharing back our scholar survey data with you all, so you can better understand what your scholars are saying about their career experiences on campus. We plan to continue to do that. So you should have updated reports with this data as we get closer to the start of the fall semester. So you can also utilize this scholar survey data based on what's happening on your campuses to better inform your own conversations for what you might be able to provide for your scholars. And then,
can I just ask a follow-up to that?
Yes.
Sorry, I joined a little bit late, so if you mentioned that earlier in the meeting, I missed that. So that was helpful to know, and I'll certainly look out for that data. I wanted to know, do you have the response rate for that survey so far?
Yes, we do. And we are very proud of our response rate. It's been growing over the years, but we have reached, I believe this year is over 75% of our scholars that were enrolled in the past academic year. I think we landed on close to 3,200 students who participated in the survey. So it's a very credible source of data in terms of what our scholars are saying.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then Nicole, there are a lot of questions coming in here for you. So let's try to see if we can get through as many of them as possible. There's a question here that says, it was mentioned that ITIN allows students to do internships. Could you elaborate further on this? What kind of internships are they eligible for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are some internships and fellowships that are inclusive to ITIN holders. The ones that we are familiar with is out of UCLA. They have a Dream Summer Fellowship that are open to ITIN holders as well as Social Security holders, and you do not have to be a UCLA student. You'll find this information on our ITIN website as well, but Dream Summer Teach for America has a fellows program that also recently became inclusive to ITIN holders. Parker Dewey is a micro internship platform. All micro internships and projects posted on Parker Dewey are inclusive to ITIN holders. So those are just a few. I will also just mention quickly that if you currently work at an institution where you have an institutionalized or school-specific internship or fellowship program, where there is money provided to students that partake in these internships and fellowships, are they inclusive to undocumented students without work authorization? Are they inclusive to ITIN holders? If they're not, start asking those questions with your colleagues to see how can we make this inclusive for all students.
This is great. And there are a lot of great questions coming in here about the ITIN specifically. So should students get an ITIN first? Or do you need to have worked first? And then once you've worked, you apply for the ITIN? I'm confused about what comes first.
Yeah, that's another good question. We advise our scholars, if they don't already have an ITIN, that we encourage them to apply for an ITIN. I would encourage you to check out our YouTube videos with our experts and CAA, Professor Francine Littman. That's a frequently asked question that our scholars asked, and you do not have to work in order to apply for an ITIN. You can apply for an ITIN without having any work-like experience.
Okay. And then what options might exist for students interested in med school and or nursing? We have several incoming undocumented students who have expressed an interest in nursing in particular.
Yeah, that's another great question, Kelly. So for undocumented students without work authorization, without a social security number, unfortunately, some programs can have additional barriers, what you just listed out, medical school or nursing. So working with your healthcare program on campus, academic advisors, maybe you have an undocumented student center on your campus, to think about similar career pathways that students could have as independent contractors, starting their own business. For example, we know that there's undocumented professionals that have their own mental health counseling business. So hopefully that answered your question there.
Yeah, and all of these questions are very, very helpful. We may not get to all of your questions here today, but please put them in the chat because this is very helpful for us to think about a part 2, a part 3, what comes next, where we can dig deeper. And it clearly, we're seeing a lot of questions around ITINs. And so all of these questions are super helpful in informing what might come next. So we apologize in advance if we don't get to all of your questions here, as we do have another portion of the session. But maybe I will take, we'll take one more question here. Are all, since this is a straightforward one, are all undocumented students eligible for an ITIN?
Yeah, that's a good question. So anyone who does not have a social security number is eligible for an ITIN. And I just want to reiterate that, because if you're working with an undocumented student who has a social security number, they do not need an ITIN. So individuals without a social security number are eligible for an ITIN. Any undocumented student without work authorization, they will not have a social security number. So yes, they're eligible for an ITIN.
Okay, and I also see Gregor, we're just about to highlight very shortly, though some of the work that you do here, but I do see some other folks maybe jumping in here to answer some of the questions. Maybe, Nicole, I don't know if this is the right time, but I do see here some concern about how we talk about ITINs, college leadership being worried about the liability that might come with it. Might you have any insights on how to best present this information to promote this option on campus?
Yeah, so that's another great question that we're talking about ITINs. Can you repeat that question one more time, Hayne?
Yes, so in terms of college leadership being hesitant about promoting ITINs, encouraging the use of ITINs, there may be concerns about legal liabilities. So is there a best way to present the usage of ITINs and promoting ITINs amongst undocumented students, for example?
Yeah, so ITINs, as I mentioned, they're created and issued through the IRS. And so they were created for filing and paying taxes. They can also be used for these entrepreneurial career pathways. In regards to the legality or having hesitation promoting ITINs, I will also mention that ITINs are not just for undocumented individuals. There are other individuals who do not have a social security number that apply for ITINs. So those that maybe have a business here in the US, but they live abroad. For some international students. So those are just some other examples of individuals who have an ITIN who are not undocumented. So having ITIN does not equate to them being undocumented. So something I just wanted to mention there. Sorry, I'm just looking in the chat here. So I don't know, Hayne, if maybe you have an answer to this, but this is the first time, I guess, that I've heard from PCs having concern about marketing or promoting students to get an ITIN.
Right. I think certainly, especially as the climate is changing much more conservative and continues to drift that way in a number of states, I think this concern about the liability of knowingly providing income opportunities to undocumented students, that seems to be the main concern, and we fully understand. I think you all sharing this with us really, really helps us, because neither Nicole nor I, for example, can provide that type of legal counsel. But what we can do is think about potentially a workshop, for example, as a follow-up session where we do bring in a legal counsel from a university, from a partner college who has been through this, for example, or a team where we have worked through this, and provide trainings, messaging on how you might be best able to market these types of opportunities that don't directly single out undocumented students.
And Hayne, I might just jump in on this for a moment. First of all, there is a paper that you can get from the Higher Immigration Portal that is all about establishing non-employment-based opportunities. And the key for leadership is to know this is not an employment-based opportunity. So you don't run afoul of the laws that say you cannot knowingly hire or contract with someone who is undocumented. They are non-employment-based opportunities. So they're fellowships. The internships that we are offering are actually set up as independent contracts. And we do not, when we promote our programs for the internship program, it is open to all of our scholars, with or without DACA. We don't ask that. We only ask, do you have an ITIN or do you have a social security number? They have to have one or the other to participate in the program. So the paper that was written on the experiential fellowships, I found it to be quite persuasive. We shared it with a couple of lawyers at our partner colleges, so they could see that there, in fact, has been research done on this. There are other colleges that have implemented it, and that gives them a little greater sense of comfort that they're not running afoul of the law.
Thank you so much, Candy. And I just dropped the link. Thank you so much for that to the President's Alliance memo there in terms of how we talk about funding opportunities for undocumented students. Okay, so we are taking note of all the questions that are coming in. Please keep them coming. But for now, in the interest of time, we will move to the next session, next part of this session.
Hola, mi gente. How are you guys doing? I missed you guys. I really want to talk to you about some promising practices for supporting career resources resources and pathways on your campus. I know that we're running a little short out of time, so I'm going to try to get through this as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So I want you to take a couple of notes of these 6 little points that we're making, because the next couple of slides after this will give you even more concrete ideas of how you can implement these suggestions and these theories. So first is educate yourself and your team on how to properly advise undocumented students on your campus, right? And so you're already doing that first step, like just attending this session, all of the information that Nicole provided, all of those links are just more information that you can click on and really, really inform yourself and educate yourself on how to support students on your campus. And I want to also focus on the your team piece, right? You do not need to work alone on this. You do not need to be the sole person on your campus working with students. As Hayne mentioned, we are piloting and opening up these sessions to other staff, faculty on your campus outside of the Dream Team networks, because we know that these policies, these practices, in order to fully support your students, have to be implemented institutionally. And the more staff that you have on campus that has this information, the less likely students are to fall through the cracks. In addition to that, you want to make sure that you are creating career resources to specific events for undocumented students, and make sure that when you're promoting these resources and events, that students know that this is specifically for them, right? We often use the term regardless of work authorization. Sometimes just saying undocumented resources is not enough, because sometimes students think, well, when you say undocumented, does that just mean DACA because they actually have work authorization? So I'm still a little bit different from that, even though I'm undocumented as well. So you always want to make sure that you're highlighting that you're providing resources that are for students regardless of their work authorization and immigration status. You also want to make sure that you are creating and promoting inclusive internship opportunities for your students on campus. Nicole already highlighted some of the projects that we, TheDream.Us, are working with you to provide to our scholars. But she also mentioned a key point, right? Like if you hear of other opportunities and you want to find out if they are available to your students, sometimes making that call and just figuring out, hey, can students apply with an I-10? And if the answer is no, then maybe even a follow-up question of why not, right? And really sort of make sure that you are providing as many inclusive internship opportunities to your students, right? Follow to that is creating inclusive fellowship opportunities. Again, we, TheDream.Us, have, through Nicole, have been creating these opportunities and sharing these opportunities with you in order to create opportunities and support services for our students in their career development. And again, if you hear of other opportunities, make sure that you are promoting them as well to your students, that they know that they exist and that they are available for them to be able to apply for. Create and promote entrepreneurship learning opportunities and resources to undocumented students. And so you want to make sure, again, that you are highlighting these pathways for students, that they know that these are the major pathways that they can earn income and have a career, which is available to them regardless of their work authorization status. And then become familiar with your state professional licensing laws, right? Some of the information that we provide is sometimes kind of national and is kind of broad, but you can always look into other resources and identify the specific laws within your state that may dictate licensing, what individuals are able to obtain specific licensing, such as nursing, such as teaching, engineers, and so forth. Now, with all of this in mind, what are some concrete ways that we can implement some of these concepts? I want to give a huge shout out to MSU Denver and sort of highlight their website. They have an amazing website that they've created specifically for undocumented students, and they've labeled it Undocu Careers and Entrepreneurship. This is just a screenshot, but you could always click on the link on the top that will take you to their website, and you could actually go into each individual individual tab that they have and see the information that they have. But you can see from the screenshot already, they've created a guide specifically for Undoc career guides for scholars in the state of Denver. What opportunities, what ways, how can they obtain different opportunities for them, regardless of their work authorization. Frequently asked questions for DACA employers. So they're thinking of the dichotomy, right? It's not just about educating the students and the scholars, but also the flip side of that and educating employers and letting them know the opportunities that they can make available to students, whether they have work authorization or not. They've also created guides for I-10 and how to apply and how to gain those resources, and have local resources for entrepreneurs. As we've been talking about, really sort of expanding this network across your campuses, working with faculty, working with other partners, other departments within your campus. Another big way to not work in silos and really expand your network is the Undocumented Students Communities of Practice Directory. This is a President's Alliance national platform. It was put together with the goal of sharing effective practices, hosting topic-specific meetings and working groups, and facilitating connections for practitioners who work with undocumented students. So this is a national platform of specifically mental health professionals working with undocumented students, college advisors working with undocumented students, career services, advocates, local grassroots organizations, just a wide range of professionals who work specifically with and supporting this population. And you have all of this in your fingertips. You can join the network. You can click the link of it's above, and you could actually join the directory as a undocumented professional and have access to their resources, have connections with all of these professionals across the country who are doing this work, and share ideas, build that discourse of working with this population and serving this population. And so it is an amazing new platform. We have really high hopes for it. You can easily find experts in a number of issues. So if you have a program that you're looking to implement on your campus and want to sort of see if there's someone else who's already done something like this and then you would like to get some advice on, you can literally contact them through the platform, connect with them, and really create that discourse and get those advices and consultations. And again, we're building a national community here of professionals who are working in support of this population. Talking about some career resources. So most of you know that we already have professional conference grants, which we are providing grants to our scholars to attend professional conferences. I had the privilege and the honor of taking 9 scholars to an educational conference for Aspiring Educators Conference last week in Atlanta, Georgia, and would love to share a quote from one of the scholars who attended the event. All good things must come to an end. I recently attended the Innovative School Summit in Atlanta, Georgia with TheDream.Us. By far one of the best experiences I've had so far, connecting with peers like me and creating lifelong bonds. Most importantly, it grew my passion for becoming a teacher and realizing this profession was a calling. So this is Bella, one of our national scholars. And I wanted to share that with you because it was a sentiment that was sort of expressed throughout the group. It resonated with everyone. I watched these scholars as they attended these sessions and became motivated in becoming teaching professionals. They learned in these workshops how to build out their own lesson plans for when they did student teaching or when they became professionals out in the field, whether they were going to be teaching traditionally in a classroom or building out platforms for teachers to be trained or other educational programs that could be used by public schools across the country. So regardless of their work authorization, they were seeing how they could put their education into practice and what their passion was of really working with young individuals and building up the future of tomorrow. As we were coming to a close and we had attended already 2 full days of the conference session, I advised the students that they did not have to attend the 3rd session because we were only required to do 2 days. And immediately, Viviana looked at me and told me, I have to see Consuelo Castillo present tomorrow. So I am not leaving until I see her. And moreover, I am not leaving until I talk to her and get all her contact information, and she becomes part of my professional network. And after that, Vivi, who was actually already a teacher, an ESL teacher in Michigan, said, and I'm also going to get her to come down to Michigan and talk to my principal about how we implement a language immersion program. So I looked at Vivi and I was like, Vivi, go get him, girl, you got this. And she went. And I was so happy to see the next day this photo right here with her and Consuelo. And I already see that she's already on her way to accomplishing her conference goal and really building her network. Moving on, the PC Career Event Funds, I want to make sure that we all know that this already exists. You could always click on the link here as well. That will take you to the website if you want more information. But I wanted to highlight San Antonio College and Texas A&M University San Antonio, who have been working together on creating an event. And so not only are they working together and pooling their funds to support their scholars across both campuses, but I also want to highlight that they are working with an alumni panel who have started their own businesses or LLCs to make sure that scholars are seeing themselves in these presentations and what the career pathways that they have that are available to them. I also want to note that they're working with the YWCA and the River City Federation Credit Union to provide workshops on ITINs and financial literacy workshops, right? So they're even expanding it further, not only working with the other partner colleges, but making sure that they're working with their local communities who have support services and are able to also support scholars. Nicole, I will pass it on to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. A couple other reminders about some career resources from our organization. As I mentioned earlier, our new ITIN website, where you can check out these helpful resources. Next slide, please. And then also we kicked off our internship funding program and experiential fellowship program. Both are inclusive to Social Security number and ITIN holders. If you are a current partner college of TheDream.Us and you want to receive free money up to $15,000 per program year, which aligns with our calendar year or the calendar year, check out our program brief. You can learn a little bit more about the internship funding program and the experiential fellowship program. We have about 30 plus participating in the internship program, and our newer fellowship program that launched, we have we have about 13. So do know if you're interested that the applications close the end of day Friday, July 14th, which is coming up. If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me because I oversee both of these programs. One other quick thing I want to mention is our internship funding program. We've had over 100 scholars that have participated in paid internship opportunities. So we're excited to create these inclusive paid opportunities with our partner colleges. Next slide. And this is brand new. So PC is you get a quick glance at one of our new internship programs that we plan to kick off either later this summer or early fall. It's our Dream Builders internship program. Essentially, we will be reaching out to our alumni of the Dream.Us program and asking them, hey, do you want to host a current scholar as a paid intern at your place of work? Or if you're a small business owner, do you want an intern to help you with some projects? If so, we'll give you money to pay our scholars as interns through this program. So we plan to promote this out to our alumni in the month of July, and then hopefully kick it off shortly thereafter to promote to our scholars as well as our partner colleges about this program. Next slide. And I think lastly is we have our annual summer career series that's kicking off again this July. It'll be the last 2 weeks. We have 5 great sessions, all of them focusing on entrepreneurship and career options for those without work authorization. These sessions are open to scholars and alumni, as well as you, those at our PCs. So definitely feel free to check any of these out. You can also find recordings of last year's on our YouTube channel. And with that, we've come to a close. Sorry, Chris, is this you?
Nope, that's totally fine. Robin,
So we have a little bit of time for Q&A.
Yeah, there's a question here, Nicole from Caddy. Are new schools, new partner colleges able to apply for the internship fellowship programs?
Yeah, so new schools, brand new schools, you are welcome to apply for the upcoming calendar year 2024. So if you are a new partner college, please email me sometime, I would say in mid-fall, October, and I can send you out the application then.
Great, and then go ahead.
The only reason I'm mentioning that for new schools, we're waiting a little later for you, is because we know that you're new schools. We want you to get acclimated to our program criteria and guidelines, and also welcoming the new scholars at your institution.
All right, and then are the summer series open to other partner college staff? And there's additional one that just came in to non-TheDream.Us scholars.
Yeah, so for the first question, our summer career series is open to PC staff, our staff members at any of our PCs. We mainly promote to all of our liaisons, like our scholar advisors, career services liaisons, and so forth. However, if you know a colleague that would be interested, you are welcome to share this with them. In terms of non-Dream.Us scholars, we are marketing this only. This is for scholars within our program, as well as our alumni. So unfortunately, this wouldn't be open to undocumented students who are not part of this program at this time. With that said, they can check out the recording post-event.
I think we're good then to wrap it up.
So it does seem like the questions have slowed down. And so we want to thank you all again for joining the event today, for your amazing questions. We had some really great questions. And this is what it's all about, right? We want to be here for you. As Haynes sort of noted at the beginning, we do the surveys. We just don't make you do them for no reason. We listen to them. We hear you. This is a direct response to your questions and your express for need in more career services support for undocumented students. So we want to make sure that we are doing our part in supporting you and supporting our scholars. So we are here for you. Please feel free to always reach out to us. Keep attending these events. We are looking forward to more collaborations with you and extending our reach on your campuses. So again, that we can make sure that students are not falling through the cracks and are able to get support services throughout your campuses, not just the Dream.Us PC teams. And I think that's it. Hayne?
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be looking at all of your questions again in the chat and following up with next steps.
Gracias.